So payments tied to ransomware attacks in 2021 are exceeding 2020's total by a decent amount. According to FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, the first half of 2021 outstripped 2020's numbers by quite a bit. 2020 saw about $416 million tied up in this like illegal activity they're tying to it, and then 5.2 billion was tied to crypto transactions through the FinCEN's kind of internal reporting. How they do this is through suspicious activity reports, or SARs as they're called them. Nick Day wrote a great article kind of digging through what this means and what it means for the crypto industry. Of course, we've seen top down, this has been a concern for a lot of regulators in this space. The Biden administration has been big on this, and it's kind of brought Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies into the purview of other regulatory bodies within the federal government, because they're looking at the ability to use these new tools as ransomware. And it's a pretty interesting angle for the federal government to be getting involved in crypto for the first time. Over the last few years, we've seen consumer protections be a big thing, but now ransomware adds a whole new angle to that. Kind of ties into, well, many other points that we could get into later. But Zach, I want to throw this story first of all to you, because this is a big number that they updated with.
Yeah, expect to see this number cited in many a congressional testimony going forward. I think this is a key data point that's going to be cited quite often. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Obviously, I think I think there's a nice little note from the Treasury Department saying that Monero is seeing a bump here. So bullish for Monero, the anonymity-enhancing privacy coin known as Monero or XMR is becoming more favored in ransomware payments as opposed to the more traceable and trackable Bitcoin. So interesting to see this sort of industry, actually, this black market evolve, and also interesting to see some data emerging on how this is a growing sort of subsector of the crypto universe. And I think, again, as we hear Bitcoin ransomware being linked more closely in regulators' minds, not regulators' minds, I should say, more like lawmakers' minds, I think this is going to be a data point that's going to be trotted out often. So get used to this report and, read up on the facts and figures on this one, because I think, again, we're going to be hearing a lot of it going forward.
Yeah, just to grab and fact check myself really quick there. So $590 million in payments were tied to ransomware in this year so far. Of course, the year isn't over. And then last year is $416 million were tied to crypto payments that were themselves ransom attacks. And then the $5.2 billion number I noted earlier was tied to FinCEN's reports on suspicious activity reports. So that's kind of like a larger bucket of reports and transactions that FinCEN's looking at and saying, like, these might be something we need to be wary of. But that $516 million number is the thing, or $590 million rather, is the number to look at. Amy, I want to throw this over to you, because go ahead.
Actually, Will, you might know this. You might have dug into this a little bit, but is that price adjusted? I'm actually curious about that now. I'm wondering if that just represents the growth in the value of some of these assets that are being slung about.
That would be a very
like, maybe it's not a growing subsector, right? Like maybe it's like flat, but price is up. So like, hey, the first half, and this was for the first half of 2021. Hey, that's a bigger number than it was in 2020. I don't know. Is it price adjusted? I'm gonna have to do some fact checking and get back to you later.
Let's get Nick on this. You gotta get Nick on the show.
Nick.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Naomi,
I was going to say that I had a similar question, actually, Zach, to you. It's also the idea that crypto is more pervasive across the whole economy. So if ransomware takes up a certain percentage of that economy and crypto is growing in total, then we're going to see ransomware grow as well. But I also wanted to just quickly talk about the two ways that the government could be tackling this. One of them is to make it illegal for people to pay ransomware, which doesn't protect the companies at all. It's sort of this double speak where they're like, oh, we are really concerned with companies, getting their data frozen and not being able to access it and having to pay this money. So we're going to protect them by not allowing them to pay the money that would allow them to get their data unfrozen. So it's not going to help these companies at all. The idea is that it would, disincentivize people down the road and less of this stuff would happen. But it's really hurting the people who are getting, targeted with this in the first place. The other way is much smarter, which is to go on a campaign to encourage people to increase their security, their digital security. This is something that the government never talks about. They're always talking about how things are too private, how encryption is really bad, and we got to stop encryption because it helps terrorists. How no one should have privacy on the internet, and we should have ever more backdoors installed in things. This I mean, this is directly attributing, this is directly leading to an increase in these ransomware attacks, because if no one is talking about why digital security is important, why they should be focused on protecting their machines, they're not going to do it. Instead, the government is attacking this encryption, attacking and weakening people's systems, and more of this stuff happens. We need to really start educating people about why it's so important to have robust security on their systems and how to protect themselves. This is how we actually, help people and protect their data. But Jen, I saw your hand go up as well, so I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, you kind of stole my idea and you articulated it so much better than I would have. I'm just so frustrated by the growing connection between crypto and ransomware. Just like you were saying, Naomi, ransomware is a completely separate thing from crypto. Yes, crypto is used in ransomware attacks, but if we address what's happening with ransomware, if we can educate companies on how to keep their data safe, which obviously they are not doing. We're seeing so many data breaches. Privacy policies are so complicated and convoluted. If there was an interest in providing that education, I think we could really eradicate some of these problems that we're reading about in these articles, but I don't think there is an interest. I'll throw it back to you, Will.
Yeah, just that tweet from the Missouri governor the other day. I think you guys might have seen it. It's quickly becoming a meme, where he reported and accused a journalist of being a hacker for going to the back end of a website and pulling out a bunch of social security numbers that the government's office I think it was like a local school that had this set up, and they weren't protecting any of their employees' social security numbers because they didn't know how to. They didn't have it set up correctly. And the journalist literally had to press one key on his keyboard, and all the information for all these employees was just revealed right there. And the governor turned around and accused this journalist of being a hacker and said, like, you have attacked the state and embarrassed us. And I think like that's a very good picture of the two worlds are colliding right now. We have stable coins and crypto and Shiba Inu tokens. And then you have like this old world that's still operating on the fax system. And like at some point there's going to be a collision. Naomi, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, and there was another big story that came out. So Matthew Green, very famous cryptographer, is the one who worked on like Zcash white paper. Like he's just very involved in crypto, but in cryptography side of things. So he wrote that Twitter is being sued over the Saudi spies that they hired in customer service and SRE roles, the one who used their access to collect information on Saudi dissidents. So this goes to speak to, you have all these social media platforms who've been trying to add end-to-end encryption to their messaging services for a long time, and the government has been systematically pushing back. Facebook tried to implement this years ago, and the government said, whoa, you cannot encrypt your messages. This is a great example of why it's important. They were saying, like, it doesn't matter as long as we protect it and this information stays within the company. That's all we really need. We don't need end-to-end encryption. This is an exact case of why we do need end-to-end encryption, because Saudi dissidents, were attacked and targeted by the government because Saudi spies were allowed to just see all the stuff on the back end. So we really need to be protecting this data.